All right, so this is the first period video. I intend to go over 1, 4, 7, 10, etc. And the hardest part will be making sure I hit the right set of problems. So, number 1. What is the average rate of change as opposed to the instantaneous rate of change? But the average rate of change of this thing between 0 and 3. So, average rate of change, what's that calculus code talk for? What's average rate of change mean?
Change in y over change in x.
There you go. Change in y over change in x. Algebra 1, slope, any of those things. Delta y over delta x, as opposed to the derivative is dy dx. So that's like a really small change in y over a really small change in x. That's the instantaneous rate of change, as opposed to the average rate of change. So yeah, it's just the good old slope formula. So from 0 to 3 means I need h of 3 and h of 0, and then I can use the slope formula. So h of 3, that's lovely, 3 to the 4th minus 5 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27, times 3 again is 81. 81 minus 15 is 66. H of 0, that's an easy one. We get 0. So 66 minus 0 over 3 minus 0. And that right there would be a safe stop. Obviously, multiple choice test. 66 divided by 3 is 22. Number 4. F of x equals 3x to the 5th minus 6x squared plus x minus 91. Then f prime equals, that's an easy one. Why don't you do resume. Number 4. So that would be 15x to the 4th minus 12x plus 1. 15x to the 4th minus 12x plus 1. D. We're doing every third one. But we started with 1, so that kind of throws us off. Slope of the tangent line, instantaneous rate of change. Again, these are all the Spider-Man memes of asking you to do the first derivative as many different ways as we can. Number 7, find y prime. X to the 8th times secant of x. So what rule should we use to find the derivative of x to the 8th times secant of x? Could I make it any more obvious? No, you couldn't. It's the meme where you're tempted to do the wrong thing. I bet the wrong answer's there. Yep, there's the right, tempted by the meme, the pretty girl walking by. Don't be tempted to do that. That's definitely not it. It's probably going to be C or D before I even do anything, because that's what the product rule will look like. So I'll call this one F, this one G. So GF prime would be secant x times 8x to the 7th plus the other way around, FG prime, x to the 8th. Derivative of secant is secant tangent. So let's see if anything matches that. There's 8x to the 7th, but something's not right about that. 8x to the 7th secant. I think C would be our answer. Yeah. C would be our answer. The secants and tangents, people get confused, and you can kind of see that confusion here. The derivative of secant is secant tangent. What's the derivative of tangent? Secant squared. So people get those confused sometimes. All right, that was a relatively straightforward product rule problem. Okay, 3 more from 7 would land us at 10. Oh, we're hitting a great selection of problems here. What's going on with number 10? What's the main rule that's involved here? Quotient rule. How'd you know it's the quotient rule? It's kind of a dumb question. It's like, because they're dividing, because it's a quotient, because it's a fraction. Yep, all of those. I'm a little more cautious with the quotient rule because I got to get the order right. So I need to be real careful. With product rule, it's derivative of one times the other plus the other way around. So you don't have to get it exactly right, and you probably still get it right. Quotient rule, you got to get the signs in the right spot. Let's see, derivative of the top would be -2. Derivative of the bottom would be 2. So the pieces are relatively easy. And now I know how they got answer choice E, right? If you just took the derivative of the top, derivative of the bottom, you'd get -1, but that's not how the quotient rule works. So let's see, quotient rule is GF prime minus FG prime over G squared. So GF prime would be 2x plus 3 times -2 minus F, 4 minus 2x times G prime, which is 2, all over G squared. I look at my answers, they all have G squared, so that one's fine. It's really more about simplifying the top now. So -4x minus 6 minus 8 plus 4x. Oh, the 4x's go away. -6 minus 8 would be -14. So answer choice A. -14 over G squared. So looking at number 13, find the slope of the line tangent to the graph. Okay, Spider-Man meme, like they're all the same thing. That's F prime at 4. Uh-oh, how am I going to do this? What rule is this going to take? Well, Alan mentioned it earlier and the reason for it. Anders, what rule am I going to use on 13?
On 13?
Mm-hmm.
Let me switch to that one. Quotient rule?
Why the quotient rule? I agree.
Because it is, it's over the exponents. Like it's over a function.
Okay, over a function. There's a fraction would be good enough. Although I don't know if that's good enough, because if you were taking the derivative of 1/3, you would not use the quotient rule. What's the derivative of 1/3? 0, because that's just a constant. So be careful. I know what you mean when you say it's a fraction, but you really mean it's a fraction that has some x's in there. All right, so f prime. What's f prime? If f is 2, f prime is 0. But that's a good thing. That'll simplify things in a moment. G prime would just be 2. So GF prime would be 0 times 2x minus 3 minus FG prime. That's just 4. 2 times 2 is 4. Over, so I'm going to just mark out the 0 stuff, over G squared. 2x minus 3 squared. Why is that not one of my answer choices? You're right, because it's at 4. It'd be cruel if they put that as an answer choice, because it's not quite wrong, but it's not what they asked for. So if I want to evaluate that at x equals 4, then let's plug in 4. This notation I don't use often, so I don't remember if I've commented on it before, but if you put a bar And x equals, it just means you're evaluating this at x equals 4. It's just a way to communicate with me or whoever's grading what you're doing. 2 times 4 is 8, minus 3 is 5, squared is 25, negative 4/25. So a quotient rule problem that turns out to be easy, but easy in a tricky sense because one of those derivatives went to 0. Ian?
On multiple choice questions, you have to like write out your notation, or you can just like random stuff as your work.
Random stuff as your work is fine, but I do want to see something that I can tell leads to this answer.
Okay.
Because I didn't do this on the last test, I don't think. I start giving partial credit on multiple choice. Okay? That seems weird, but again, the tests are hard, so we have to find a way to curve them, and giving partial credit on multiple choice is one way to do that. So if I can see that you had like all of this right and then you still pick the wrong answer, I'd be like, okay, instead of taking off 4 points, I'll take off 2 points. So do show your work. Yeah, it doesn't. But you're right. It doesn't have to be as formal if it's multiple choice. Quinn.
Is it like part of the review, or is it like similar?
Yeah, it's similar to the review.
So if you can do the review, fine. Then you're okay.
Yep.
Wait, do you have any tests for
That's a good question. The tests are in my desk, so when I finish this, I will give you a test breakdown. Fair question. Where were we? 10, 13, 16. Again, the hardest part is keeping up with what number we're on here. So 16 and 19, and then we'll be done with this portion of the video. Which is an equation of the tangent line? Okay, so equation of a tangent line. So not just slope of the tangent line, that would mean derivative, but equation of the tangent line means I need slope and a point, because I want to do point-slope form. Well, the point's easy, they give me that. How am I going to find the slope? Take the derivative, plug in 4, and then I'll have my slope. I'm looking at my answer choices, and they all have the right point in them, so that kind of doesn't narrow things down. But they all have different slopes, so what I'm really looking for is what's the slope of that line at 4. We stumbled into another quotient rule problem here. F prime is 4, G prime is 3. Again, you don't have to show all those steps, but I think for quotient rule especially it's helpful because there's just so much going on. GF prime has to come first. 4 times 3x minus 4 minus FG prime. So that would be 3 times 4x plus 2 all over 3x minus 4 squared. So got some cleanup work to do there. I need to plug in 4 for x. I can clean up first, or I can plug in 4 first. I feel like math teachers are more apt to do the algebra first. Math students are more apt to plug in first. But it doesn't matter. What would you do if you're working this problem? Would you simplify the numerator first, or would you just go ahead and plug in 4 first? It doesn't matter. It's kind of the same steps. One person volunteered to plug in 4, so we'll plug in 4 and see what happens. 3 times 4 is 12. 12 minus 4 is 8. 4 times 8 is 32. All right, I skip steps, but not too many steps. I can't remember everything. 4 times 4 is 16. Plus 2 is 18. 3 times 18 is 54. And then in the bottom, 3x minus 4. 12 minus 4 is 8. 8 squared is 64. I'm running out of room here. So negative something. Negative 22 over 64. Reduced by 2, that's negative 11/32, and that would be answer choice A. That's a good problem to deserve the calculus is easy, algebra is hard stamp. Right? The calculus was a pretty straightforward quotient rule. The algebra was make sure you plug it in and do all the math right. Number 19. If f is a differentiable function and y equals cosine of f of x squared, what is dy dx when x equals 3? Okay, this is kind of wild looking because I don't know what f is. Can you tell what rule we're going to be using here? Definitely the chain rule. In fact, all the parentheses, I think it sort of looks like a Tootsie Roll Pop. We got a wrapper, and then we got an X layer, and then we got the candy on the inside. So let's work our way down here, and we'll just deal with the f when we get there. So the first layer we come to is that cosine. What's the derivative of cosine? Negative sine. And then we leave the inside stuff alone. Okay, the next thing we come to is the f. We don't really know what f is, but I look at my answer choices and some of them have f prime in it. So I guess we just roll with f prime of x squared. And then lastly, the derivative of x squared is 2x. So I got this thing all chained together. I'm not quite done because I need to plug in 3 anywhere there's an x. So negative sine of f of 9 times f prime of 9 times 6. My answer choices are in a little bit different order, but there's a negative 6 for B, and for D, negative 6 f prime of 9 sine of f of 9. So D it is. So that's kind of a wacky one because 3 functions, you knew 2 of them, and that third one they just called f, and so you kind of have to just roll with f prime in there. That's kind of weird. Alright, so that's the end of first period video. Again, stay tuned for second and fifth period videos where you'll get the other 2/3 of the worksheet.